I love rainworld. Never have I ever felt the way I do about a game until rainworld. So it comes as no surprise that some of my greatest and most entertaining videos are from it. Some of my favorite moments are from it. Let's go! And some of my favorite characters and even art are from it. But it doesn't mean it's perfect. Nothing is in retrospective, and rainworld is no different. Rainworld recently released its second unfinished DLC on PC, The Watcher. In it, you play as a select guy capable of doing whatever this is through 27 unique-ish regions connected via portals, playing essentially what is hide and seek with an echo named Spinning Top. I adore this DLC and have had a lot to say about it, I have already discussed my very initial review on essentially what I thought of the gameplay in my first video, the Watcher experience. I've already made a meme video in my more traditional wacky fashion I do with rainworld, and it absolutely rocks and you should go watch it. I've even covered the alternative ending and my initial thoughts on that. What I haven't done is taken a step back and discuss it in depth about why I truly and genuinely believe it not only succeeds as a DLC to the base game rainworld, but why story-wise it actually surpasses that of Downpour. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, feel free to subscribe. It's free and helps out a ton. I don't just do rainworld or playthroughs, I do it all. And I think if you enjoy hearing me talk or my reaction to things, you'll quite enjoy what I have to offer. Thank you and enjoy the video. I am going to be quite critical, so before I do, I want to make something exceedingly clear. Downpour is a passionate love letter to rainworld that I adore and love regardless of what I say in this video. It is what sucked me into the story and game infinitely more than the base game ever could and ever did. And whereas I believe the base game does a much better job in its overall storytelling and how it presents itself, and is overall more intriguing to me, Downpour is simply put more fun, more engaging, more customizable, more forgiving, more expansive than the base game ever was and is for me. Spoilers obviously ahead for most of rainworld, Downpour, and The Watcher. I mean, if you didn't get that from the intro. If we are to understand why I think The Watcher succeeds where Downpour doesn't, we need to discuss where I think Downpour actually excels: The Saint. The Saint is a masterclass in what I love about rainworld. The Saint does not hold your hand. It does not expect you to understand it, and it gives just enough very vague clues without saying anything explicitly. The ending can be interpreted in vastly different ways, and that's brilliant. It's perfectly in line with the base game's ending in that sense. It expects you to have played every Select Cat before it, to understand the world, its environment, and creatures like the back of your hand, and flips it with the snow. Whereas Survivor opens with a dream and showcases why you are where you are, The Saint simply shows where you were and where you need to be. The Survivor is about surviving. Shocking. And being this minute, stupid creature fighting just to make it another cycle. If you happen to make it to Moon or Pebbles, you aren't trying to save them, you aren't trying to change their fates or deliver a message, nothing. You are simply a creature in this world. You stumble into Pebbles and he explains you are like everything else. Everyone who wants to escape and provides you that escape. The Saint shows you, you know why you're here. You know and need to get to the void. You only have 2 karma when you start off Saint, and an echo flash in the areas that have echoes. It doesn't explain that to you, it expects you to connect those pieces. You need echoes. You need karma. And whereas that is definitely more direction than I think Survivor gives you, it's the final campaign. It makes it known that it doesn't want to make you suffer trying to locate echoes in random spots. Yes, we'll get to you, Watcher, although they did fix that in a patch. But I'm getting off topic. I will dive a little bit into gameplay later. The main point I want to discuss is story. Downpour has a bit of a problem when it comes to story. That being the fact that dialogue reads like 4 people pretending to be iterators, writing essentially a fanfic about what they would have talked about in a Discord group DM. What is this dialogue? I like the story, but this is so straight. You saved a godlike superstructure for no reason, even though you're just a slugcat who doesn't have any reason to do it. Why? I'm paraphrasing, but that is almost exactly what Moon says at the end of Rivian. Like, seriously, who the f— It comes off as almost preachy or cringy. Here's another example. Why in Spearmaster do they feel the need to literally yell the fact after you get the pearl ripped from your chest with Pebbles to say, Pebbles is angry. You had a pearl in you. It's for Pebbles because you're a messenger. Thank you, messenger, for bringing this message like a good messenger. When that's literally what I just watched. You already showed it to me. I do not need to be explained what I just witnessed. It's textbook failing at show, don't tell. 5 Pebbles is hurting me and destroying my can. If he doesn't, and then blank. You just showed it. She fell. You literally show me what 5 Pebbles is doing. You don't need to explain to me that 5 Pebbles is doing it. I can see that she's damaged. Let me figure that out on my own. Why did you feel the need to explain it to me? Not even just before she fell, but also after. This is my main and almost only critique with Downpour, and is something that isn't seen in the base game whatsoever. In Survivor, Monk, Hunter, Pebbles and Moon talk like computers. Flat, almost emotionless, exact, true to their nature. No ifs, no maybes, perhaps, or whatever's exact. They are pinpoint accuracy, computer accuracy at that. The dialogue fails in Downpour everywhere. There's not a moment where it actually flows like a computer, like the base game did. It's people pretending to be. The reason I brought up Saint is because it has dreams, which is also lacking in a lot of the other campaigns like Artificer. Artificer has this gameplay segment which I can do whatever I want and it doesn't affect anything. This is worse than just the dreams. The Saint has very minimal dialogue outside of the echoes and the ending, and even at it, it's pretty cryptic and keeps it simple. And it feels as close to Survivor as any of the other Slugcats have been. I use Saint as an example because it's the best campaign, and I don't think the lack of exposition and dialogue is a coincidence to that fact. This is literally the best dialogue in the game from this echo. It says so much without really saying anything at all. It's saying life has purpose. Why did they want to leave? And all that is to tell you is it all has purpose, it all has meaning, and this Echo, who is now forever trapped in between worlds, watching as it withers into a new world, is attached to life, to their life, not to a place or a moment or mission, to life and the cycle itself. And that's brilliant. It gives a whole new perspective on the cycle, which up until this point, for the most part, has just been, oh, it's bad, you need to break it. Not to mention environmental storytelling in the Saint. It's one of rainworld's strong suits, and it's the main reason I cherry-picked Saint here. The snow alone with creature spawns tell you you're in the far, far distant future, and that the world has not only changed, but altered well beyond what you could have imagined. At the beginning, you kind of don't really have any other options other than going to Pebbles, because that's almost what you've been trained to do at this point. And when you get there, he's just gone. It's empty. Where is he? Did he collapse? If so, where are the ruins? You automatically fill these questions in your head just from seeing this with the music build up. So when you inevitably end up in Shaded, or what used to be, whether you're trying to get to Moon or trying to get to other echoes, you get your answers. You aren't even really expected to find pebbles when you get to Shaded, but you can if you like, and he'll simply tell you that there's nothing left for you here. He's broken, and it's shown. If he was functional, I'm almost certain the dialogue would have explained, my superstructure was above Shaded. When it collapsed, I fell among these ruins. I used to be a god, now withered to a meaningless puppet talking to a small furry rodent. How ironic. I'm showcasing these examples because I want to show that Downpour isn't bad, and it has a lot of good moments, and it's excellent, especially at environmental storytelling. Something I feel The Watcher actually lacks in some regard, but we'll get to The Watcher. It's the dialogue, mostly just the dialogue and dreams, I suppose. It doesn't read like robots. It doesn't read like supercomputers, but like people. Like angsty teens who feel and emote, and it makes sense for the story they were trying to tell, but reality and the base game contradict it heavily, and in general is kind of just bad in my opinion. I don't think it's good dialogue. This brings us to The Watcher. The Watcher's form of storytelling is very unique, and that's a good thing. The Watcher is very much non-linear and doesn't spell anything out to you, much like the Saint, which allows several meanings to be derived from it. However, whereas the dialogue in Downpour just wants to hammer its point into your brain as if you can't come to that conclusion yourself, The Watcher decides a different approach. You are a slug cat who, well, watches. You are shown in the very beginning that you watched your presumed family and or friends die, or at the very least leave without you. You are stricken with childhood trauma in this sense, but it isn't explained. Not initially. It's shown. And it's shown just enough that me giving context is what makes it make sense. It's very easy to understand if I just draw a conclusion to it, but you could draw your own. And truthfully, when you first start, you just have questions. You don't really have this context. Did they die? Did they leave? Why is there an echo flash at the start? Is that just a dream, or was that a memory? And it's all questions that do get answered only by paralleling yourself with this very echo you find yourself roaming with. And that's different. It's very different from any of the other slug cats. After the second encounter, you will begin to notice rot. A new kind of rot. A stronger, more aggressive kind of rot. A survivable rot with seemingly no connection to where it's coming from. It's not pebbles. It's too sparse, and yet it grows strong. It blocks off your access to the iterators. It seems that wherever you find your new friend, the rot is with it. It's interesting. Upon that second visit of the echo, you'll receive what they call a gift. This gift allows you to, at least from what it seems at first, camouflage and or turn invisible, even calling it camouflage in the tutorial. It's implied the echo gave you this power, but for whatever reason and how is unknown. It kind of gets answered, but it's kept vague still. We'll get to it. I guess they just like you. It's also apparent via the laughing, the look, and the overall vibe and dialogue of the echo that it's a child, or at the very least a young creature. It's a kid, and the questions about why we find it 3 times, how it's able to traverse and kind of move along a different sort of axes comes flooding in. it's intriguing, and it's done by design to make you interested. Upon the third encounter, it asks you if you shit. Thanks, video kill, and whoosh. I'm running over the beginning of how this works because, I mean, as I alluded to, it's a setup. It's designed to make you curious. It's designed to make you interested about several things in the Watcher, and it makes you want to ask and get answers to your questions. It invites you to be curious. It invites you to want to explore and figure things out. That's what the Watcher is about, and I think it's something that was very easily missed because it kind of pulls the rug from underneath you by making you start in a world you already knew. You've been so predetermined to know what to do that it comes off as a little odd if you're not reading between the lines. Now, as you explore these new areas and explore and keep exploring, you'll truthfully just end up running into Spinning Top. Even with the most recent patches, the Echo is only in a few places at once, which means they're never far, but they're definitely never close. In the newest patch, they have added a golden ring around the map that shows where the Echo resides. It's a nice visual cue that can only be seen after sheltering or visiting that area, then sheltering, but it's a welcome one. However, that means that for the first Echo and arguably the next couple, you're gonna be a little lost because you have to unlock that area in order to see that golden circle. So it will probably take a little bit of exploring, which is fine. I mean, I think at the beginning that can work. Towards the mid game, it really becomes handy because at that point you've already visited most. Just wanted to point out there is a patch that fixed that. Prior to that patch, it was atrocious. This is that gameplay element that I wanted to kind of poke at a little bit and discuss. That's one of the worst things that they've already addressed in the 1 or 2 patches that they've done, which is really good. So with that being said, you know, it's getting there, and I think it's almost like perfect as to what it needs to be. So with that being said, this is where environmental storytelling takes a spin because there's not really any connected areas. It doesn't mean that there's not environmental storytelling. It just means there's no continuity between any of them, and initially this could be seen as a bad thing versus the base game, as the base game had already mastered this. But the reality is the DLC is meant to evoke a new experience, a new emotion, and a new gameplay element out of you, or even just out of the game. It's experimental for sure. For best or for worse is up to the individual, but I'd argue it gives enough of a new experience to warrant being its own thing and having some respect for that. Story-wise, you eventually slowly find out through Spinning Top that you are traveling through different places in time, space, and whatever third dimension this is. Ripple time, I think? I like that. Ripple time. I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's what I've come up with, because I think the new karma system that they introduced, which, yes, the Watcher has its own, not karma, because it's not called karma in the files. It's called, I think, ripple level. So I'm sticking, you know what? I'm sticking with that. Ripple time. The point is, environmental storytelling isn't really gone per se. It's just different to what we'd be used to calling it, and ultimately, it's not actually environmental storytelling. It's environmental cues, if you will. Nor do I think that lives up to the likes of like the Saint or the base game, which is again the other thing that I had made allude to. It's the one major gripe, but for the story the Watcher's telling, I think it can work really well. So it's a swing and a miss, but it's not that hard of a miss, and it can be improved, and it's something they've already improved, so that's good. Just I wish it released in the state it did rather than me talking about it post update, because I had this script written before these patches, so it's a little jarring to replay it and go, oh, okay, they actually addressed those concerns. It's a little odd. Obviously, this is me saying the gameplay isn't super crazy. It's all about exploration and finding new creatures and worlds far beyond that of Pebbles and Moon. A new worlds, many of them through time and ripple. It's a very unique take on one aspect that rainworld offered, and it's a very different version of what it offered. Downpour had the problem of it being the exact same area, just different time periods. So ultimately it's 5-ish different time periods of just the original game's 3. If the Watcher was that, it would just suck. When the Watcher first came out and the initial reaction was just straight up, has little to no story, that's vastly untrue, and it's what I want to delve into here. But I really want to just touch on the gameplay, that it is there, it is problematic, it is different, but it doesn't mean it's bad. And the problematic part of it has already been addressed, so I think it's looking really good, and the future for it is looking really bright, and I think people just didn't really give it the chance it needed. I understand if you don't like what it was going for. It's very different than the other Slugcats, but that's a good thing. It's a DLC. It's meant to take you on a different experience. Just because it's more cryptic and different doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's different. And yeah, the story is, simply put, more cryptic and a background element. As you locate Spinning Top more and more, you learn more and more about them. A little quote here, a little quote there, about their old life, where they are, where you are, why you're here yourself. And as you find them, you slowly piece together, if you pay enough attention to the context between the lines in the dialogue, that this is an ancient. At least I did prior to my ending. The farther you go as well, the stronger your ability becomes, which is, it gets more in tune, it gets more evolved. Find Spinning Top enough times around the world and listen to them talk and discuss about what something of their own life is or was, and eventually you'll create ripples in time, ripples in space. If you don't realize it now, you will soon, but you obviously aren't turning invisible. You're not actually camouflaging. No. Rather, you are transcending this physical realm and traversing in another, at least part of you. You also just float. I don't know what that's about. You're just... Whee! Let me dive into the story now, and it's the reason I believe it's better than what Downpour put out. After finding Top roughly 8 to 10 times, you'll be able to fully transcend into this new world, fully avoiding any and all creatures beside that of which reside there. There are a lot of conclusions to be made about entering this realm that I just kind of want to spitball to real quick. One, I think this realm is obviously in between worlds, but my first theory is this is where the echoes find themselves in order to kind of like teleport around and get between areas. Or, I mean, the other one, which I think is more likely, it's some sort of in between of cycles. We don't know much about the cycle, and my personal canon is that this DLC is attempting to delve more into that, as well as what the void, rot, and echoes are and how they work. But I believe that when a creature dies, it creates the void worms that we see, or either that or it's them ascending. But these are purple. Usually the ones we see are yellow. And maybe the yellow ones travel down and down and down towards the sea, ending up in this purplish world in between, trying to find their body. Or maybe they just end up here in the purple one first. Yeah, I mean, it can go either way. The point is, in order to return to their body, where the cycle starts anew, I think it's where they are traveling. I like this theory a lot more because Echoes being here, like Spinning Top, and the Void Worms here being purple and being able to be present but not dead, kind of like us when we traverse this area. We're here, we're present, but we're not dead. But you know, we're not in the normal physical realm. It makes sense to me. I like this theory, but that's kind of just my thought on it. Point is, once you've reached this level or ripple effect, you can go into this ripple time realm and float significantly more. Going back to Shattered Terrence, you can float over this interesting ravine, find Top in ripple time, and be taken to where the Watcher concludes, where Spinning Top's story concludes. Ancient Urban. Ancient Urban is will you'll receive the end of The Watcher, and the answer to just about every question I've brought up or that you may have had up to this point, as well as more questions, but I mean, what fun would it be without more questions? This is also where I think the environmental side of the story comes back in a more typical rainworld fashion, and in my humble subjectivity, I believe it's the best out of anything we've seen before, in a very different way, if you will. You first start by doing what you do best, exploring. You find small moths in event-like areas, rats that look like, well, rats, city rats. You find a little bit of dust and old narrow pathways you could just hardly squeeze in, but massive fans casting large shadows as you drop down and cross this bridge. The further you go, you see these same shadows, or so you think. As you go and go, you eventually reach a window. Out this window, after passing the vents, the narrow tunnels that you can hardly squeeze in, large fans with rats, moths, and dust in them, you find them. The ancients, casting those same shadows you previously thought were the fans because that's all that made sense at the time. You're in literal vents. You're a creature squeezing through these larger intelligent beings' walls. Those are literal rats and moths. It's dusty and cramped because it's quite literally a wall. It's so good, and not something I think that gets nearly enough praise. This whole build up, you can piece together that you're in ancient civilization before you get to this point, but it doesn't click perfectly until you get to this point, and it is brilliant environmental storytelling, and it's brilliant playing on what your expectations are, and being able to even see the ancients, albeit just their shadows, is amazing and answers several questions, namely being that yes, you are traveling through time and likely space, as these creatures are unseen near Pebbles and Moon. Even the mods are unseen towards Pebbles and Moons. Maybe they're extinct at that point. Obviously the ancients are, but I mean, we could truthfully be on top of Moon or Pebbles just back in time when it was thriving. It's hard to say and ultimately doesn't matter. You can locate Spinning Top to the right before proceeding to the end of their journey in a room. Their room. They reminisce on it and can still feel their presence and the sounds of their toys. Toys will become familiar with ourselves. When you proceed past the window and further into this environment, you will find the karma symbols, leading down the path with many candles like you've seen before, where a friend awaits us. They tell us how they've returned back to the same old void baths, back to the salt, back to the gravel. They have returned to the place they ascended from. One, this kid did not want, or did they not understand at the time what that was. They tell us how they left and ask why did they want us to go. They hope that they would have found some evidence of someone, anyone that remembered them in space and time, going to all the way into the furthest future to the furthest past to see if anyone did. Realizing they hadn't passed on like everyone else. Maybe they were hoping to find themselves. I don't really know. But they found us. A Slycat, a simple creature who had lost their own in much the same way as it was shown in a dream just earlier. We, much like the Echo, were left. We didn't quite move on, we didn't quite go with. We are among the cycle and have chosen to remain or been stuck to. The Echo exclaims how they are now ready to move on, and they thank us. They thank the Watcher for helping them realize that they can move on, that it's time to. There's nothing more for them here, nothing more to hang on to. We've helped them move on by visiting these same areas they have on the same journey, ultimately. This is really simple, but it's cryptic. It's a cryptic, vague story so that you can interpret it in whatever ways you want. My interpretation is the most raw, I think, but ultimately you can come to your own conclusion. It's one piece together really by very small context clues and keywords in the dialogues before and now, and it all focuses in on this ending and gives you all the answers you want regardless of what you thought was going on. You know, what you've been doing, why you're doing it, what the Echo was doing, and so on are generally answered right here. All from fairly simple dialogue that still doesn't explain it in the way Downpour ever did. This is the exact reason I believe the Watcher succeeded. Downpour failed to explain its story through simple means. And even when it did end up explaining it through simple means, it was proof of just how amazing it can actually be. That's what the Saint is. It's amazing because it does it through simple, effective means up until the ending. But throughout most of the other campaigns, it's plagued with bad dialogue, sloppy exposition, and so much telling and talking and no showing. So many of the endings are just 5 to 10 minutes of dialogue explaining what just happened, what you just did, what will happen, and continue to explain what you're going to feel, how these characters feel. It feels sloppy. Again, it's not bad, and I still enjoyed the story, and the story is still good enough that it kind of works in its own regard. But the Watcher and base game do not have that same problem. And they have the ways of not outright revealing anything directly and letting you come to the conclusions you need to. The base game had pearls which gave you specific exposition, but you had to find that, you had to locate it, and it still wasn't direct. It was context clues. Those context clues piece together everything around it. The Watcher feels kind of the same, except it's all just finding the one Echo instead of finding pearls. The Watcher is very simple in that regard, and isn't attempting to revive godlike superstructures of metal and the affairs of them. They're on their own path, their own journey about choosing to live in the present moment and enjoy the little things. Like the Echo in Saint, like the Echo in the Watcher. Choosing to move on and to be attached to life, not necessarily their past or present or future. It's brilliant. We do this by watching our friend move on, pass, if you will. The Watcher watches as it did before. We then choose to spend our moments, our last moments before the end of the game, in their bedroom, playing with those very toys they spoke to us about. Ultimately and finally resting, happy. Or you could choose to do none of that and give cancer to the entire world. Woo! Thank you for making it this far into the video. I hope I was fairly clear. The script was kind of written in like 8 days, and the video was edited over multiple other days as well. In the time it's taken me just to make this simple video in retrospective, several other ones have already come out talking about the Watcher, and a lot of them actually saying some things that I have, which is fine. I mean, that makes sense. Everyone is going to come to very similar conclusions, albeit still different. But I wanted to talk about the Watcher and kind of defend it, like have seen a few other people do, and the patches kind of threw everything for a loop because they have made it infinitely better, and I praise them for that and what they've accomplished with just a few patches. And I look forward to the rest of it and the rest of the updates that they plan to add to this campaign. Now, I know I talked about the gameplay a little bit more than I intended to, because that is a major gripe with me. I still think it can be improved upon, but with those patches, that segment went from being kind of small to about half of what I had to talk about. So I apologize if, I alluded to it like, oh, I'm gonna just briefly talk about it later on, don't worry about the Watcher, to it being like half of the segment. Because at the end of the day, the patches just, it changed the gameplay aspect. So the video isn't as perfect as I wanted it to be, but I wanted to come into the defense of the Watcher. I love this DLC, and to be honest, it's grown on me a lot more since my initial playthrough, because in my initial playthrough I kind of fell into the same trap everyone else did of not paying that much attention to the echo, not realizing that that is the central aspect of it, and there's a lot of context clues that you have to figure out kind of quickly, otherwise it will fall behind and you won't realize what's going on, which is fine, because I mean, well, that's rainworld, that's how it's always worked, so that's no different. It's just their execution of it is, it was kind of a rocky start, and the story took me a minute to fully understand in that regard. 3 whole playthroughs, actually, in fact. But nonetheless, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye. This ain't still the best campaign, by the way.